A man wakes up in a pit filled with dead bodies, confused and surrounded by corpses in strange conditions. He realizes he has no memory of who he is or how he ended up there. As he tries to process the situation, he notices someone watching him. Instead of helping, the person quietly leaves. The man sees that his own hand has cut wound, and he finds a gun nearby. Suddenly, a rope drops into the pit. He climbs up using the rope, but when he gets out, the person who was watching him is gone. He wanders around and eventually reaches a house where a man named Lucas points the gun on him. Both men are wary of each other, suspecting each other of being involved in the murders in the pit. Lucas asks the man who he is, but he can only respond that he woke up in the pit with no memory of anything before that. Lucas doesn't trust him. As they continue talking, another man named Nathan starts to wake up, regaining consciousness in the house. There are other people present, including Sharon, Michael, and a girl who threw the rope into the pit to help the first man. This girl doesn't understand or speak English, so she stays silent, and they refer to her as Mute. The truth is, none of them knows anything, except the girl Mute. They all just woke up and found themselves in this situation, but Mute was already there when they woke up. They don't know about each other and their own identities, also about how they got there or whose house they're in. Only Mute knows, but she can't explain to them. There's no phone or computer around, indicating everything has been planned. They have some IDs that could help them discover their names, but there were no IDs of this man. So, for referral, let's call this man Ben. The four others woke up inside the house, while Ben woke up in the pit. This makes Lucas suspicious that Ben might not be part of their group and could even be there to harm them. They also has 2 car keys but doesn't see any cars around. Meanwhile, Mute is trying to communicate by writing something down, but none of them can read the language. Ben becomes angry and starts demanding answers from her. Michael steps in to stop him, suspecting from Ben's aggressive behavior that he might not be a good person. Ben and Lucas were still arguing as they didn't trust each other, but they realized fighting wouldn't help them. They needed to work together to find a way out. They decided to search the house together. As they searched, everyone tried to remember their past, but no one could recall anything. Mute tried to communicate with Lucas by pointing to a mark on her hand, but they couldn't understand her. They noticed that both had the same mark on their hands. There was plenty of food and supplies in the house, so they wouldn't go hungry. They also found a calendar with a date marked on the 18th, which was the day after tomorrow, indicating that something significant was going to happen soon. There were also many guns and ammunition in the house, which Michael seemed particularly skilled with. Even though he couldn't remember who he was, he might have been a policeman, as his muscle memory still worked. After taking a bath, Ben noticed Mute going into the jungle alone. He, Lucas, and Sharon decided to follow her. As they walked, they saw some glowing stars in the sky, confirming that they were far from any city. Ben began having flashbacks of dragging a woman with a scorpion tattoo on her body. As they continued deeper into the jungle, they suddenly stumbled upon 2 dead bodies, each tightly tied to a tree. Someone was clearly behind all of this. Meanwhile, Nathan discovered he could read Latin, French, and Italian. Michael pointed out that while their brains weren't functioning properly, their bodies and instincts still remembered everything. He suggested the house might belong to Nathan, as all the books there matched his interests. While exploring the jungle, Ben, Lucas, and Sharon stumbled upon a small town where they saw a Mute feeding a woman. She looked scared and unwell. As soon as she noticed them, she hid in fear and accused Mute of using her. They were all shocked, and when she tried to approach Sharon, Ben knocked her out, making her unconscious. They also noticed a camera nearby, indicating someone was watching their every move. Realizing they needed to find a control center to get more answers, they decided to return to the house. Back at the house, Nathan tells Ben he knows many languages and suggested he might know about Ben. Ben had several keys he found earlier, and he was trying to open a locked door with them. When the door wouldn't open, Ben decided to break it down, but it was too heavy and sturdy to break. Nathan suggested they leave it for now and get some rest, assuring him the door would still be there in the morning. The next morning, Michael was fighting with everyone because they did not take him with them in the jungle, and this time also they are not taking him. He says that they will need him because his aim is the best, which he has proved, but Lucas says to stay here quietly and take care of the house, because if there is any danger on Mute, they may not be able to find out about their situation. Saying this, they left for the jungle, and Michael was completely frustrated. They find another dead body in the jungle, on which they moved forward without paying much attention. Here Michael is talking to Mute, which she didn't understand. He hears a scream and locks Mute in the house and leaves. There he meets a man who was badly trapped in fencing. Michael tries to save him, then he stabs him in the neck, and after that he was asking for help. There they all got 2 cars, one of which has less fuel and the other one has no battery, but they will make it work. Here we see that Lucas is getting sick, about which he is not telling the rest. Now they get a group photo in a car in which they were all present except for Ben. Lucas's words prove that Ben is not a part of their group, but Ben says that who knows if I took this photo. When they were going back, then Mute came there and took them to Michael, who was counting his last breath. Sharon tries to save him completely, but it doesn't help. He dies in front of them. Then that man started screaming and Ben directly shot him. He was getting those flashbacks again in which he is dragging a girl. They were all very saddened by Michael's death. Now their one companion is not alive. By pushing the car, Sharon and Ben left to check the area, and the rest 3 came back home. They both reached an abandoned building where a child was present who recognized Ben, and he is calling him by the name of Jonah. So maybe this is his real name. He says, "Go away quietly and they will come here by tomorrow." At home, Lucas's health started to deteriorate more and more. He forcibly caught Mute, which scared him very much, but Nathan somehow somehow freed him and calmed Lucas. Jonah was also angry because the kid did not open the door. He was completely out of control and was breaking the door, which started hurting Sharon's head. Jonah decides to cut the door. Then Sharon somehow stops him and both were not in full control. Suddenly, both have some memory triggers that made him calm. Nathan was asking Mute about Lady whom he was feeding, and luckily Mute understood. She brought him to the shed, but till then that lady had run away from there. Mute stops Nathan from going ahead, but he doesn't stop. According to him, he knows this place and he doesn't want to go back without checking because he can't stay stuck in that house for the rest of his life. He went ahead by sending Mute back. A little further, he reached a place where there were a lot of sheds and a lot of corpses were also lying. There he finds a pair of glasses lying there, which had some memory trigger while wearing it because this is his glasses. When Mute returns home, Lucas was sitting there and his condition was not looking good, which Mute also understood. So she locked herself in the attic and now she will not come out until they come back. Door did not open, so Lucas goes downstairs where he found a secret door which brought him down to the basement. It was a lab and also a control center. That is, the camera that was looking at that woman is monitored from here, and it is still monitoring them, but many of the subjects are missing. Maybe an evil experiment is going on here and that lady was the subject of the experiment, and who knows, the dead body in that pit may also be the result of this experiment. Here, Nathan found that lady who was crying for her daughter because she is not alive now. Nathan tells her that we just wanted to help, but she immediately jumped on him, so Nathan locked her and left. But it will not be of any use because there are already many subjects freed by that woman and are now chasing towards him. After checking the camera footage here, Lucas finds out that Jonah is behind these experiments. He did these deadly experiments and Lucas himself is his subject along with Mute. That's why there was same mark on the hands of both of them. That means he was absolutely right. Now he will not spare him. There was a virus test going on here which makes humans very aggressive, which we will call rage virus. We saw this in that woman, in that man stuck in the fence, and now it is happening to Lucas. As Jonah and Sharon were driving back home, a tree suddenly fell in front of their car, forcing them to stop. After getting out and walking a bit further, they spotted some people in the jungle chopping wood. Despite Sharon's warning, Jonah called out to them, which caused the group to rush towards them with axes. They were also infected. Jonah and Sharon ran back to their car, but it wouldn't start because of battery. Jonah tried to push the car, but the infected people got very close. Just when it seemed like Jonah's life was in danger, the infected stopped suddenly because they saw two dead bodies hanging nearby, possibly due to the smell of these dead bodies. The bodies acted like scarecrows, keeping the infected away. When Jonah and Sharon finally made it back home, Lucas points gun at Jonah. He showed Sharon some footage, which made her realize what was happening. There were injection marks on her arm also, revealing that she, like Lucas, had been a victim of Jonah. Jonah, frustrated, demanded to know what he had done, but it was clear now that he was seen as the villain. Tensions rose between them until Lucas knocked Jonah out. When Jonah regained consciousness, Lucas was dragging him back to the pit filled with bodies. Jonah didn't want to go in, but he had no choice. Lucas had a gun and wouldn't hesitate to use it. As Jonah was forced inside the pit, he started having more flashbacks. After seeing the dead body of the woman with a tattoo, Lucas, ready to leave, was about to grab the car keys from Sharon. Sharon then asked if Nathan knew about all this, but Lucas responded that he didn't even know who Nathan was. Lucas was laughing hysterically, which made Sharon realize he was starting to lose his mind, showing early signs of becoming a psycho. He forcefully grabbed Mute, but Sharon intervened to stop him. Taking advantage of the distraction, Mute tried to escape, but Lucas caught her again. He seemed obsessed with her, believing she loved him, and starts forcing on her. Just as things were getting worse, Sharon appeared with a gun and fired a shot. Lucas jumped from the first floor and ran away. Meanwhile, Jonah was struggling to breathe in the pit, overwhelmed by the smell of the dead bodies. Mute came to his rescue and pulled him out because he seemed to be the only one who could still help. Once out, he sent her back into the house. Jonah then went to an abandoned building where he found a deranged woman and a man. The man was banging his head against the wall, and the woman attacks Jonah. Jonah tried to keep his distance using his gun, but during the commotion, his keys fell, and the woman grabbed and swallowed them. Jonah didn't want to hurt her, but when she attacked him, he was forced to shoot her and managed to retrieve the keys. Jonah took the car and drove away into the night. On his way, he encountered a family with a sick, infected child. They were fleeing, and when Jonah tried to talk to them, they refused to engage. They hurried off, leaving Jonah even more confused and frustrated. His memories are fragmented, and nothing is making sense to him. He discovers a stash of vaccines, which triggers a flood of memories. Jonah remembers he was conducting experiments, not to harm anyone, but to save them. He wasn't working on spreading the virus. He was working on a vaccine. The virus was spreading rapidly across the world, and they were desperately trying to find a cure. They hadn't succeeded in finding a permanent cure, only a temporary one. This explains why there were so many injection marks on everyone's arms. They were all test subjects, already infected, who had been brought to this island for testing. Jonah realizes he wasn't hurting anyone. He was actually trying to save them, as all of the test subjects were already on the brink of death. Now he understands the significance of the 18th. The government had given them a deadline. If they couldn't find a permanent cure by then, the entire place would be cleared out. This island had become a dumping zone for the the infected and the dead. The army was scheduled to come and wipe out everything because the vaccines Jonah had sent out never reached them. The person carrying them had died. Jonah also learns that Sharon is his girlfriend and Nathan is his brother. Jonah is a good man, but convincing Lucas of that would be difficult. Lucas arrived in a car and Jonah tried to stop him by showing his hand. However, Lucas wasn't in the mood to stop. He drove straight at Jonah, ramming into another car. If Jonah hadn't moved in time, he would have been seriously injured. Seeing Lucas's state, Jonah realized he needed a shot, but Lucas wasn't going to let him do it easily. Lucas charged at Jonah, almost strangling him to death. In a desperate move, Jonah grabbed a stone and hit Lucas on the head, killing him and saving his own life. With Lucas's death, Jonah suddenly remembered everything, and so did the others. Lucas had been his only patient who showed signs of recovery, but now he was gone. Michael was Jonah's bodyguard, and together they had been working to treat the subjects, and things were going well for a time. However, Nathan made a mistake that led to an attack by a subject, the girl with the tattoo. Jonah had killed her in self-defense, but the incident caused a rift between him and Nathan. Afterward, Jonah had thrown the girl's body into the pit, and everyone else returned to the house. Jonah discovered that the infected had escaped and learned that the man carrying the vaccine had been attacked. Realizing the urgency, Jonah ordered Michael to gather everyone at the house and bring the vaccine. Jonah needed to return quickly, but before he could, an infected person attacked him and bit his hand, causing him to fall into the pit. Unable to escape, Jonah injected himself with the vaccine. This vaccine affected his memory, which explains why he forgot everything after that incident. As Jonah's memories returned, Nathan also made his way back to the house, where Sharon was already waiting. However, a large group of infected broke in. Surprisingly, the infected were no longer afraid of the dead bodies scattered around. Nathan and Sharon ran out of bullets, and in desperation, Sharon wrote a note to Jonah, fearing they wouldn't survive. Jonah, running towards them, arrived just in time as the infected closed in. Suddenly, gunfire erupted, killing all the infected. It was the military who had arrived to clean the area. Nathan, thinking they were a rescue team, stepped out in relief, but the soldiers shot him down too. They weren't there to save anyone. They were there to eliminate everyone, infected or not, as part of the containment plan. Seeing this, Mute and Sharon hide in fear. Jonah arrived just in time to see his brother, Nathan, killed. Hiding from the soldiers, Jonah and Sharon tried to escape, while Mute hid alone. As Jonah and Sharon were running, they suddenly stopped. Sharon had been stabbed by the same infected woman who had attacked earlier. The woman turned to attack Jonah. He shot her before she could strike. Sharon was bleeding heavily, and with no real help available, only the threat of more bullets from the military. Jonah decided to take her back to the pit, hoping the military wouldn't pay attention to them there. He gave Sharon an injection to make her unconscious, so she could pretend to be dead. Before losing consciousness, Sharon handed Jonah the note she had written earlier, telling him to read it carefully. The story comes full circle. When they wake up, their memories will be wiped, and they will have to piece everything together again. Both Jonah and Sharon pass out. Later, the military arrives with the body of the child who had tried to warn Jonah earlier, confirming that no one has escaped. With their mission complete, the soldiers leave. After a while, Jonah wakes up in the pit, disoriented and confused, just like before. By this time, Sharon is already dead. Jonah finds a gun again, but he doesn't focus on the note Sharon gave him, meaning he will likely repeat the same cycle. The note holds some crucial information, but its contents remain a mystery for now. As Jonah shouts for help, Mute arrives and saves him again. It turns out Mute holds a secret. She is immune to the virus. The vaccine they were working on was made from her blood. If she is lost, humanity's last hope for a cure disappears. She leads Jonah to a place that looks like a true open grave, with thousands of dead bodies scattered around, showing how little value life has in this place. This site is a dumping ground, and for now, the whole world is like an open grave. The movie ends with open ending. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe for more.